What's going on, everybody? My name is Jason and welcome to my channel. Today we're working on an ultra rare 1983 CW Phase One cruiser. So this is a 24-inch wheeled cruiser. This is an ultra rare BMX bike. I've had this between 20 and 25 years. I actually ended up buying this for $400 many years ago. And the interesting thing about this bike is my boss that I worked at, I worked at All-Star Bike Shop in Cary, North Carolina. I worked there for 11 years. And I remember that my boss was talking about CW and how they had a weird lightning bolt down tube. And not even 2 weeks later, this ended up coming in the door. The guy was desperate for money, and I gave him all the money I had in my pocket, plus I emptied out the cash register to buy this bike. I asked Don if it was okay if I took money out of the register and I'd replace it the next day. And he looked at me and I think he might have shook his head a little bit, and he was like, yeah, go ahead. So I ended up buying this, and I told the guy that it was worth some money, but I couldn't tell him how much it was worth. Now at the time it was worth less than it is now. But I did not realize how rare this one is. There is 5 or less of these known to exist in the cruiser. Now you can look online and you'll find several of them. Of course, a lot of them are 20-inch wheeled bikes, not the cruisers. There's a couple of them that are fakes, or there's also some where they actually brought back a limited run of cruisers, but you can tell those because they weren't trying to hide the fact that they were reproduction ones. They actually made some updates to the frame to make it stronger, so I have no problem with that. But there's some other ones that are just complete knockoffs where they're trying to pass them off. And if you look online, you'll actually see that there's, half a dozen, maybe a little bit more, but you've got to think that these things over the years have been sold, and you'll see a picture of one particular frame at one site, and then you look at another site not realizing that it's the exact same bike or frame that had been sold to somebody else, and they put it up on the website. So it looks like there's a few more than there actually are. When I got this bike, it actually had some mountain bike tires on here, and it had a straight seat post with just a cheap mountain bike seat on here. So I cleaned this thing up as best as I could. I put some of these cool red tires on here. I actually had some old school plastic seats, and I had this layback seat post, so I put that on there. And also the spokes were in really bad shape, so I actually replaced the spokes because they were really rusty, and that's all I've done. These are actually the original pads, and I actually had a complete set, but that's what this video is going to be about. Is I actually got a package in the mail with some new pads. I didn't want to put new pads on here, but I was actually going to one of Keith King's little stunt shows, and he invited several people to go to display the bikes. And I was driving to Raleigh, and somehow, some way, I lost the pad. It might be squirreled away in a safe place. I don't know. I cannot find it. And what's annoying is there's the pad for it, but I don't see the actual rest of the pad. The other thing I'm going to be doing is this bike, the rear bearings on this bike are bad, so it's got a lot of play in the rear wheel, and whenever it's rolling, it's actually making some grinding noises. So in this video, we're going to replace the bearings on this rear wheel, and we're going to replace the pads on this bike, and I hope you enjoy it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove this rear wheel, and everything on this, I want to say, is actually going to be the bolts are standard. So I'm going to have to find some tools. So I'll be back in a second. So I'm going to get my 1/4 inch Allen wrench here, and we're going to go ahead and remove this wheel. Now I am really lucky to have this bike, because this is the best example of one of these bikes I've ever seen. If you look online, you'll actually see that the dropouts on all of these are in really bad shape, except for this one. These dropouts are perfect, and that is really rare to find. So we're gonna get this chain off. We're gonna open up this brake. There's a little lever on the side of the brake here. And we're gonna slide this wheel off. So now that we've got this wheel off, we're gonna go ahead and remove the freewheel. So I need to get my tool for that. And then we're going to go ahead and replace these bearings. Now, if I recall correctly, these bearings, since the specs were not that great back in the day, they actually would put these bearings in using Loctite, and I may have a heck of a time getting it out, because that Loctite ends up, well, it's basically gluing it into the hub, and it's going to be difficult to actually get it out. So we're going to remove that freewheel so that we can have better access to the bearings. I'm going to be using my impact gun to get the freewheel off. It's to help try to protect the hub and the spokes and the rim, because this freewheel is on there pretty tight. So we're going to just line it up if I can. I may need to remove the Allen bolt, although it's smaller than the hole that's in the freewheel tool. Yes, the washer is not. So a little bit of noise here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to screw the bolt back in to the hub. I'm going to get my rubber mallet here, and we're going to try to drive the axle through, knocking the bearing out. Which side is worse? They're both pretty bad. All right, there we are. And interesting, this bearing is made in West Germany. Okay, we're gonna screw this back in and tap it a little bit more. Okay, there we go. And this bearing should be a 6001, because this hub is actually the second generation hub. Some people call this the first generation, but this one actually has the brushed stainless steel middle part of the hub. This is a three-piece hub. And that is really interesting that the hub doesn't have any shoulder in there. That might be the reason why they had it, or have it Loctited in there to keep it from moving in and out. I'm going to knock out this other side, and we're going to see if there's a shoulder on the other side, then the freewheel being on there is going to keep the bearing from coming out this way, and the shoulder on the inside keeps it from going the other way. Kind of a simple design. I don't know if that's the way it is, but that's the way I would do it if I was making this hub. So we have to get this sleeve on the axle off, and we got to get the bearing out. So I'm going to put the vise on here. I'm not clamping onto the axle. It's just this is a little more firm. There we go. Let's make sure that this axle, or excuse me, this bearing is a 6001. So I'm going to get a towel and kind of wipe off the bearing. This one's made in West Germany as well, and it is a 6001. So I'm going to go find my bearings. 6001 is a very common bearing. Let's look and see if there's a shoulder on the inside of this hub. And somehow I don't think this other bearing in this hub is a 6001. It's not quite off all the way. There we go. So this one is definitely 6001. I'm going to put this axle back in because I have to drive this other bearing out. I'm threading this bolt back in most of the way, plenty of thread, and we're going to drive this bearing out. I was hoping that it wasn't going to drop out. And there is no shoulder. So I don't know how in the world this bearing, well, Loctite. So I know that I need to put a little bit of red Loctite in this. Okay, this other bearing is a 6002. I really hope I have a 6002. All right, I'll be back. Hopefully with 2 bearings for this rear hub. So we have our hub fully disassembled. We've cleaned the inside of the hub, and I did end up finding a small shoulder inside of here. It's a very small shoulder, but it doesn't need to be much to keep the bearing in place. So on the drive side, that one bearing keeps the axle from shifting towards the freewheel, and it also keeps it from shifting out. So that's how this hub stays together. However, we will be using a little bit of red Loctite on the inside of here, just a little bit, because that's what you're supposed to do on these old Phil Wood hubs. we're going to go ahead and finish cleaning up the axle right here. I did a lot of research before doing this, and whenever I did my research, it said that this second generation hub, there were several different bearings they were saying that were supposed to be in there, and I ended up seeing that it either used 2 of these 601 bearings right here, and then I also saw that it was supposed to potentially have one of these R8 bearings. So I actually drove all the way to Raleigh because I didn't have this R8 and I was out of the 6001 bearing. So I drove all the way to Raleigh to get these bearings from my distributor, and it turns out that it uses one 601 bearing and then a 602 bearing, and I didn't see anywhere that it used a 602 bearing. So I don't know, guys, I mean, if y'all have experienced this, but it was a little irritating, except luckily I actually had some 602s in stock. So the 602 goes on the drive side of the hub, and the 601 goes on the non-drive. So let's go ahead and get this cleaned up. And I've got this real fancy sealed bearing press that's going to work for one bearing, and then on the other bearing we're going to have to use kind of like some shade tree mechanics because the axle is going to be kind of in the way, and you can of course tighten the bolts and it'll squeeze it shut. However, that's kind of hard on the bearing, so we're actually going to use a socket, just an everyday socket if you have tools, and we're going to tap the bearing in. So let's go ahead and get this thing cleaned up and go ahead and install a bearing. So we're going to go ahead and get this good and cleaned up. We don't need to go super fancy, we just need to clean it up. And we'll go ahead and get it put together. These bearings look horrible. It's pretty cool that these are made where they are, but this bearing is actually, I think this bearing right here, the drive side bearing, is actually fine. Let's see the non-drive. Yeah, this non-drive bearing is pretty bad, but you know what? We're putting all new bearings in here, and we're going to start with grabbing the rear wheel here, and we're going to install the drive side first. So that's going to be this 602 bearing, and we're going to go ahead and put a little bit of the red Loctite on this. So we're just going to put a thin amount onto this bearing, and we're going to go ahead and smear it around. And then whatever I've got left on my finger here, we're going to put on the inside of the hub. So we're going to go ahead and put it right there, and let's see if it'll press in with my finger. Oh wow. That's why you use red Loctite, because it's going to actually prevent that from being able to come on out. Wow, that went right in. All the way. Alright. Now on the axle here. We are not going to put any red Loctite on here. We're going to put some nice anti-seize on both of these, both sides, so it doesn't corrode. So we're going to be using our copper anti-seize, and I'm going to put a thin coat on this. If you go with a heavy coat, that's fine. You can't use too much. It'll just kind of squish on out. We're going to put a thin coat on the inside of the bearing here. And we're going to go ahead and install this. And just kind of wiggle it until it goes in. Hopefully it doesn't push the bearing out. Alright. We're going to get our mallet and just give it a little bit of a love tap. There we go. As you can see, it's all the way through there. Now, it really would have helped if I put the anti-seize on this side as well. And of course, I'm getting some anti-seize on the inside of there, which that's alright. It would have been more ideal if I put the red Loctite on the inside first. So we're going to just put it on the bearing, and now we'll put a small amount in there. Okay. And then it was a 601 bearing. We're going to put a more thorough amount on this bearing. You know, it's really not a big idea, or excuse me, it's not a big deal, I should say, about this, because it's not like this bike's going to be ridden that much, because this is just going to be one of those, we'll say trailer queens, where it's just going to be not really ridden, it's just going to be driven around. Okay, thin amount on the inside of the bearing there. And then we're going to install it. And this is where we need to get our socket. Come on. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the old bearing right there, and we're going to just kind of tap this in place. Sorry, there's going to be a little bit of noise here. So the bearing is actually hitting the top of the toolbox here, and we're just going to tap it. Alright, we're going to find a socket that fits that. Alright, so I've got a 21 millimeter socket right here. And we're going to find a better surface to use. Actually, let's use this. Here we go. And we're going to tap it in. We're going to see if the axle moves inside of here. I guess we need to remove this one. There we go. All right, I think we've got it. We're going to wipe off any of the red Loctite that's right here. So it's looking pretty good. Bearing is spinning pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and install. Let's go ahead and remove this. We're going to clean this. This is the spacer for the drive side. So we're going to clean the inside real good, clean the outside real good, get any dirt and grime out. Let's clean this a little bit more, make it look good. We're going to put some anti-seize on the inside of here. And it's not going to hurt to put a little on the axle. We can always wipe it again. And this is all kind of pressed on there. Just like that. Okay. Clean this up. Not the prettiest job, but it will do. Okay. We're going to install this one. So far, this is actually feeling great. Okay, we're gonna wipe this off a little bit. We're gonna put some anti-seize on the threads here. I love this copper anti-seize. It is the best stuff to use on threads. We're going to put a little bit underneath the head here. Okay, I'm making a little mess, but nothing a little towel won't fix. Okay. Clean this up. We're going to install the gear. And then we're going to get this wheel reinstalled. It's going to be great. I've had this thing for so long, and this is going to be the first time that the bearings on this rear wheel are going to feel as good as they do. I was kind of afraid to even mess with the rear hub, because at the time I hadn't messed with very many Phil Wood hubs. But over the course of the years, I've gotten a lot more comfortable with working on Phil Wood hubs. Okay, and then of course we're going to put some anti-seize on the threads here. Copper, of course. We're going to put some on the inside of the freewheel. I don't need to bother cleaning this up because I've never ridden this bike in all the years I've had it. Okay, we're going to thread this on with our hands. We're going to just make it hand tight. All right, let's go ahead and install this wheel. All right, guys, this has been a long time coming. We're going to go ahead and install this chain. This wheel is kind of a snug fit. It goes all the way to the front of the dropouts. And, you know, quite frankly, that's probably what saved the dropouts on this, is the fact that this whole entire time, the wheel has really been tucked as far forward, which makes the bike handle a lot better because you can manual better. So we're going to make the chain sort of tight. Let's close the brake up. And then we're going to line the wheel up in the frame. If we get everything done properly, the brake should center up, which it has. Let's check the chain. That's still good. Let's go ahead and tighten this thing up. I may have to add some chain tensioners to this at some point. Good and snug. Good and snug. Oh, that's so nice. No play. And look at how well that wheel spins. That's really nice. All right, so we got a package here from, I guess, Pennsylvania. And let's go ahead and open this thing up. Oh, I see red. Look at that. Well, I'm a little disappointed because you can see the graphics on this right here, and you can see that the graphics on this, look at that. You've got thick graphics here, whereas this is much smaller. The CW is not too bad, but that racing is quite a bit different. So I'm going to be holding on to these original pads. I'll put them away safely. I am going to install these because even though they're not the best, it's still better than nothing. And these are the original foam pads, which are red, obviously. We're going to put some gun oil on here to help protect the chrome. It's also going to give it a little bit of a shine, and it's also going to get some of this dust off of it. Okay. We're going to make sure the cable is in the slit there. That looks okay, but I am not happy with that. And this is an original redline stem. And this one is the one that flew off. That pad is the wrong size, it's too small. Now let's see how well it fits though. Okay, it's kind of small, but I like it because it keeps it from moving. All right, I'm okay with that.
I think the girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done. I think the girls with their nails done. Girls with their nails done now.
Well, guys, this bike turned out really great. I am not 100% happy with the pads, but you know what? It's better than nothing. And losing this pad on the handlebar was very upsetting. I'm hoping that it's just been put away in a safe place and I've just temporarily misplaced it, but we'll see. These pads do look great on the bike. It really does make it look better. This thing is 85% original with the way whenever I got it. It didn't originally have these tires. These are fairly new. The pads, obviously, because I just replaced those. But it came with a straight seat post and a cheap mountain bike seat. So these are era correct, but they didn't come with the bike when I got it. Of course, it came with everything else, which is absolutely amazing. I'm very thankful that I've got it, and I hope y'all enjoyed seeing the video of the bike. So this is the last video of the year, 2025. I hope everybody had an amazing Christmas, and I hope y'all have an absolutely amazing New Year. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give me a big thumbs up. Don't forget to tell your friends. Check out some of the other videos on the corner of the screen. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next year. Thanks.